Hi everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another paper crafting video tutorial. Today we are going to be creating some oversized postage cards with waffle flower stamps and dies. Plus we're going to throw in a few other goodies. So if you are a fan of this postage stamp craze that is in paper crafting right now, you are going to love the oversized postage set, brand new for June 2024. There are new grip mats as well. These are phenomenal. This is what I use in my MISTI every time I stamp now, if I'm stamping with clear stamps. They are super sticky, super strong, but they don't tear your cardstock. So I'm pulling off the backing from the front and the back of my grip mat, and I'm going to place the guide on one side, whichever side is underneath my grip mat, if you will. You don't have to use it, I suppose, if you don't want to, but I do like it kind of as a guide for stamping. Then we are going to take the oversized postage set, and there are the dies, of course, and all of these wonderful stamps that coordinate. This is going to be the base or the focal point of my card design. Well, maybe I shouldn't say focal point, but it's going to be the base of my card design where all of the accessories come from. But I want to make my oversized postage beautiful floral postage stamps. And there are some amazing new stencils, stamps, and dies in this release. We're going to be using the sketched aster, sketched chrysanthemum, and sketched, of course, I can't think of the name, so let me look for it real fast, like, hopefully, poppy. That's what I thought, but I didn't want to say wrong, for our postage stamps today. Now you could totally make this a little bit more simple and maybe just create a whole set of cards with a single floral, but I love the look of the different florals used for this. I am actually only going to be using these stencils, not the coordinating dies and not the coordinating stamps for the flowers. I wanted a soft effect for my postage stamp instead of that harsh black outline. Now, the outline is great for other types of images, but I wanted this to be very flat. I want to be able to stamp like the return stamp on it, like the postage, all of that stuff right over the top. Lots of layering. If you guys know me, you know I love lots of layering. So that is kind of the thought behind this, and I think it's amazing that you can totally use these stencils without the dies or the stamp set if you don't want to. I'm only using greetings from one of the 3 stamp sets as well. You could totally use sentiments maybe that you already have at home if you just want to pick up stencils. So kind of a lot of different ways to use these products. I'm using the brand new size of grip mat from this release as well. This is a nice oversized, it's meant to fit on their, oh, and I can't think of the name, the artist mat. It's 7.5 by 11 inches. I'm just using it right on my work surface instead of getting out that. But that's what it's kind of made to work with, if I'm not mistaken. But I love it because it's super sticky, super flat as well. It doesn't have a ridge or anything that it's in. So I can just set it, you can see I set it on my desk and I'm just going to town stenciling, creating all of these wonderful layers. Now the stencils, you can see how easily they match up. There's only 2 stencils, I think, per set, but multiple different areas to add the ink for all of the beautiful layering to get that wonderful result. Now, you might be thinking that the finished card that you saw at the beginning doesn't quite look like this because there's a lot of ink added to it. I'm going to share that with you, how I achieved that look, because as I mentioned, lots of layering went into this design, and I did that on purpose. I am using Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks for my cards today. And all of those ink colors are listed down below. A lot of times I did use the ink trios that they are made to work with. This particular card I did not. I used watermelon and cherry, but then I pulled sangria in for that nice deep dark color. That's from a different trio. Don't be afraid to mix and match your inks. Okay, now we are simply going to go around the entire panel. This is the layering panel for the oversized postage with whatever ink is left on my red ink blending brush. I'm not going to worry about the greenery of the leaves. It's not going to make them turn red. I'm not using a heavy hand, but I want to add all over color to this panel, and I think it just softens it and also adds more interest, especially when you think consider, that we're going to layer this over the white postage outline. This is the Random Hearts stencil. I love a good heart. You guys know this. There's lots of hearts on these cards today. And we are going to go all over our postage now with this random heart. It looks a little messy, but when I peel it away, look how cute this looks. And as the ink dries, absorbs, and we layer all of the other parts and pieces on, you're going to see that it kind of softens. And oh, look how pretty it looks against that white back, or the white postage layer piece. I love it so much. I'm going to place these in my MISTI, and I didn't actually adhere them. I'm going to use my magnet to just hold that down for now while I plan out what I want to do for my card. Now, I did this video and these cards kind of separately. I actually did one card, and when I realized, yes, I really like this, I went ahead and committed to the other two cards. Sometimes I have the idea and I can go ahead and whip out the backgrounds and then do all of the layering and all of that good stuff. And sometimes it's more of a process. This was more of a process. You'll notice I'm taking different stamps and images from the oversized postage until I have a very clear idea of how I want to assemble. Then I am going to remove the circle and the heart. We're going to take VersaFine Onyx Black ink. If I want a good, crisp, solid black stamped image or text, this is generally what I use. And I am going to stamp this right over my postage. Then I'm going to glue them together. I could have glued them together first. I'm going to tell you why I ended up not doing that for all three cards. And the reason being is I thought if I messed up that I wouldn't have already glued it down and it wouldn't be hard to recreate or, pull the pieces apart and kind of fix, I guess is what I want to say. So now that I have that stamped, the cost of our postage stamp and the cancel, we are going to go ahead and stamp some hearts separately, or a heart, the heart from the oversized postage. And I'm going to use one of the colors that I used for my design. And I'm just using my scrap of cardstock. And I'm showing you this because I think it's important to kind of utilize as much of our cardstock as possible. And so I like to use all these little areas from where I die cut things. And we're going to simply run that through. Then we are going to stamp one of the circles. There's a couple of different circle designs. I use the smaller of the two for my postage today, the one that says special delivery and sent with love. And we are going to stamp that on white cardstock with embossing ink, heat emboss with white embossing powder, and we're going to do some embossed resist. There's a lot of different inking techniques going on today. I've also cleaned my postage stamps up top so they did not stamp on all of that cardstock. But I left them in place because I knew after I had started this that the other two cards would be created just like this. So now I'm just going to heat set this. We're going to take our ink and we're going to be pretty generous going over the top. Now, one of the things about the oversized postage is it's quite a bit smaller than an A2 sized card, but it still takes up most of the front of an A2 card. Does that make sense? And because of that, I knew I wanted to do something fun, colorful, that would really set off our postage. It is the focal point of the entire card. And so we are going to use bold, solid cardstock for our backgrounds. If you don't have these cardstock colors or cardstock colors that work, you can always ink a background with your inks and kind of use it that way. I think that would be really beautiful as well. Now, any of the ink sitting on top of the embossed area, I buffed away. Then I'm simply going to take my die and run that through my die cutting machine. As always, Waffle Flower dies are untabbed, which is brilliant. I've talked about this forever. I love it so much. And now we're going to take some foam adhesive. We're going to pop the heart up on our seal, and then we're also going to pop up the circle. So this has a little bit of foam going on, but I like how it just kind of draws your eye in. And every little part and piece we start adding, it really starts looking like a stamp. A very beautiful and fun stamp, but a stamp, which is definitely what we're going for. Now, I did take some glossy accents and apply it to the heart. That's going to give our heart a glossy raised finish. It won't look muddy like this when it's dry. So there it is dry, and I used these wonky rectangles from Simon Says Stamp to die cut the Schoolhouse red cardstock I'm using for the background of this card. And that's what I was mentioning, where I wanted something decorative. Now, I will be honest, my friend Jill Hawkins does amazing machine stitching on her cards. I used to machine stitch on paper all of the time. I used to have an old sewing machine back in my scrapbooking days. Raise your hand if you were here for my scrapbooking. And I don't have that sewing machine anymore, and my sewing machines that I currently have are for fabric only. I don't mix the two. So I need to find an inexpensive, I think, sewing machine, because I really want to do some stitching on cards. But if you don't have one and you don't want a machine stitch, I like a good stitched background. That's where I'm going with that whole story. So that wonky stitching kind of gave me that vibe I was looking for, but no stitching required and no messing up, potentially messing up my good sewing machines. So let's go ahead and move on to the sketched aster. And I am using the same shades of green throughout all three cards. So we're starting with cabbage, and then we'll layer kale. Aren't the names of these inks so fun? And we're using our Simon Says Stamp blending brushes. And you'll notice I'm trying to use kind of a light hand as I initially apply the ink. And then I will use a heavier hand as needed, or kind of as I layer on all of the color. And we just want to make sure my stencil is where it goes. Now, it sticks to this grip mat perfectly, meaning I don't have to worry that it's going to shift or move or anything when I have it in place, which I love. At this point, I always think that the ink looks a little harsh, but as it dries, as it kind of absorbs into the cardstock, it looks so, so good. Now for our aster, we are using Petunia, Pansy, and Aster, which is the perfect color for this particular stencil set, for our flower. But I am going to use a lightish hand again as I get started. These colors are newer from Simon Says Stamp, not brand new, but they are some of the newer trio of colors and haven't been used as much by me. So they are very juicy ink pads, and I don't want to just have big blobs of color in my stenciling. We're going to line up stencil, the layer, pardon me, for the second layer for our flower. The flower has 4 layering pieces, I believe. So now we're going to do a little pansy color. And I'm going to start in the center where there's that plastic and then work my way out. And just make sure we're filling all of those little areas. I'm trying to be super careful also not to go too far outside of the flower, because these stencils have multiple parts and pieces on them. You might want to keep that in mind. If you need to mask something off with Post-it tape or a Post-it or another piece of paper or something, you can always do that. And this flower, as pretty as it is, I think it looks so much prettier, as most things do, the longer it sits and the cardstock absorbs some of that ink. Kind of fades just a little bit. And now this is the aster color, which is our darkest color. For the center of our aster, we're going to do honey, which I have mentioned several times, is another newer color from Simon Says Stamp, from another trio, the Yellows trio, which are more gold, like butters and golds and honey. It is very much honey. And I love this. Butter and honey are my two favorites from that particular trio, but I just really love the yellows because instead of that bright sunshiny yellow, which I do love, I particularly love the goldish hue to this particular ink. And we'll just apply that. And then just like the first card, we're going to go back to our purple blending brush. Whatever color our flower is, we are going to go around the edges with that, and we're going to add our color. Then we're going to take our Random Hearts stencil and we're going to go over the whole thing. I'm going to choose one of the colors in that trio that I used. I think I used Pansy here, or that I used for the flower, and I'm going to go over the whole thing with the little hearts to just add in that extra layer. And then look how pretty it is. I love it. We're going to grab our Misty, and because I've left my stamps in place, I can just line this up, and I didn't attach it again. I just layered them and then used my magnet to hold it in place. Because again, my worry always is that I may stamp it wrong. I probably could have just stuck it to the grip mat and stamped each piece individually and layered them, but why make sense? Just do it the hard way. No, you can do that however you like. And again, the more that you layer on these, the more they look like postage stamps, the cuter they are. I just love these. I want a set of postage just like this, don't you guys? Wouldn't that be fun? So now I'm just going to put glue on the back of my panel. You can use a tape runner if you prefer, whatever you like. And then we're going to just pop this in place. Again, we're going to take our wonky rectangle, the largest die from that Simon Says Stamp collection, and we are going to die cut it this time from Eggplant, cardstock from Hero Arts. I definitely used whatever cardstock matched my inking the best that I had in my stash. And I had to be a little, like, I knew Schoolhouse Red. That was a super easy choice. My purples was a little bit more difficult. I don't have as much purple cardstock as I have of other colors, but I definitely had to work a little bit harder to find the cardstock color that would go the best with this. And then for my carnation that we're going to, or pardon me, chrysanthemum, not carnation, chrysanthemum that we're doing last, that pink, surprisingly, was kind of hard for me to choose as well, but I really love the pink color from the Rainbow Splash Simon Says Stamp collection that we're going to use for that one. Okay, let's go ahead and set that aside. We're going to take our grip mat and we're going to do our third background, which is that chrysanthemum that I just mentioned. Again, just using the stencil set from each. And this time we're going to do a pink color combination. Carnation, peony, and rose are the colors that we will be using. And we will use cabbage and kale again from the previous cards. And I always like to start with my stem. For me, I feel like the stem really guides where the placement for everything else on my card is going to go. Plus, the other thing that I do find that helps, and you're going to see this, I'm going to grab the stamp set and set it next to me. It does kind of lead you, it's pretty intuitive how the flower fits on the stem. But if it's ever a question like where in between what petals or whatever, I kind of like to look at the stamp set and see where that goes if I'm not using the stamp set. Obviously, if you've stamped it first, it's going to be easier. And I do have a tip. If you think, I don't know if I could line these up, but you want it to have that no line look like I'm doing here, you could always stamp your flower with a very light color of ink. And that should give you enough of a guideline to see where you're going. Like I would choose a very, very light gray or maybe even a light brown, but something very light that will kind of fade out a little bit as you add the rest of the color. It'll give you a much fainter outline than black would, and it'll allow you to line things up perfectly. I definitely wanted parts of the leaves and the flowers hanging off of the edge of all of my panels. So here with the flower, this definitely helps, although it kind of just pops right in place. You can see the top of the stem with that petal. And we'll apply some carnation first. Or not carnation. Yeah, carnation. That's why I keep saying carnation. This is the chrysanthemum stencil. We're using carnation ink. Haha. Now we're going to use peony for our second layer. And the grip mat, can you see how great it holds your stencil in place? These grip mats are phenomenal for stenciling. Hands down, I don't know how we used to stencil without something to stick our stencils to. For me, I always tell you guys this, I'm kind of resistant to change. I know, shocking. But it took me a long time. I mean, it's been years now, but it took me a long time to decide that the Misty was the best thing ever. And now I can't stamp without it, right? I know many of you feel the same. I'm this way about grip mats and any other kind of tools like this that hold our paper in place while we're working. I didn't really see the benefit, and now I can't imagine not using it because it just makes our job so much easier when we are doing ink blending and stenciling and all of the things. Okay, I'm just going to give my stencil, my random heart stencil, a quick wipe from the purple, and I'll do a good clean when I'm all finished here and give all of my stencils a good wash. Okay, we are on the home stretch for creating our cards now. We're going to stamp this postage. I already have die cut the princess pink background. So remember I said I had to kind of search my stash for the perfect pink. I kind of forgot about this princess pink color from the Rainbow Splash collection. It is perfection with these ink colors. So we are going to then layer our postage right on that. And then we're going to stamp our seal and things to finish off the background and the embellishment part of the design and finish up with our sentiments. Now, even though my sentiments generally come last on my cards, I do always start with knowing what we're going to do. So I knew exactly where they were going to go on all of these cards to make sure that I didn't accidentally, cover something or not leave room for them. Now I'm doing the embossed resist. This time I actually stamped, embossed, die cut, and now I just stuck them to my grip mat and I'm adding color. I did more of an ink blending on the pink one, and I kind of wish I'd done that on all three of them because I really like how it looks. Don't forget to buff away any ink sitting on top of the embossed area before you apply them to your project. And I have coordinating hearts for both that I stamped. And then we're going to simply take our foam adhesive and pop up the heart and then pop up the circle. I will be applying glossy accents to the hearts on both of these. It gives a really fun finished effect. You can see the red one, how glossy and pretty that is. Oh my gosh, look how cute. And now we're going to finish this one And then we're going to stamp some sentiments. And as I mentioned, there are so many great sentiments in all of these stamp sets from the June release. I chose to take the friendship stamp sets from the chrysanthemum set, pardon me. And I'm going to do friendship cards for all of these. So each of them is going to feature the Your Friendship script, and then it's going to have a different sentiment for each card. I do that a lot. When I'm making card sets, there's like usually similarities, but a few differences. And in this case, I just wanted to have a little added extra interest. And so that's what I chose to do. I'm going to take some black cardstock. We are going to stamp our greetings on the black cardstock with embossing ink, heat emboss with white embossing powder, and then die cut into strips. So here you can kind of see I'm grabbing all of my stamp sets, or pardon me, my sentiments, and I'm laying them out, figuring out which greeting is going to go on which card, and then we'll go from there. Now I do want to prep my cardstock for stamping my greetings. I think it helps a lot of the time, but especially on black cardstock where those stray embossing powder flakes have a tendency to linger and maybe stick where they're not supposed to. So I am using the Simon Says Stamp Powder tool to prep my cardstock first. Then I will stamp all of these with the Simon Says Stamp embossing ink. Then I'm going to clean the Your Friendship, and I actually just moved the Your Friendship this time. Sometimes I'll move my cardstock or stamp on another corner or something like that, but this time I just moved my greeting after I cleaned it, and then I will stamp that a couple more times. We're going to sprinkle on our embossing powder now. I just love the look of white embossing on black, don't you guys? And it's going to be nice and bold and really tie in, I think, like to the postage and the cancellation lines and things like that. Now, once this is completely embossed, I'm going to take sentiment labeled dies from Simon Says Stamp, and we're going to die cut these. They are probably my most used die, not probably, hands down, my most used die in my stash. I do not even put them away. I keep them on a magnet right close to me so that I can use them at a moment's notice. I use them with everything, especially when stamp sets do not come with coordinating dies, because it's just so handy. Now, before you do that, or even after, make sure that your cardstock and the embossing is completely dry. You don't want it to still be warm. Or not cool, not dry. You make sure it's cool, and then buff away the remaining powder from your cardstock with a dry rag, your finger, something like that, just to remove that kind of chalkboard look. And then I'm going to run my dies through my die cutting machine. I like to run them through one direction and then flip them and just cut that other end. We're going to glue our panels to white card bases. Even with the background wonky rectangle panel, we still have a beautiful border all the way around. That largest wonky rectangle is 4 by 5 1/4 on the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. Then we're taking foam adhesive strips and popping up our sentiments. And I'm kind of just centering them right there over the postage. Even though we're layering over it, it doesn't take away from the design. So just kind of trying to get them as straight as possible. You can always use a T-square ruler if you want it to be perfect. That looks amazing. I love it. And you can see I did lay out all of my strips on each background, so I kind of knew where I wanted them to go. And we'll go ahead and attach the rest of our greetings to the cards. Okay, at this point we are almost finished. I did decide to go ahead and embellish the little seal a little more. So I'm going to put a little dab of glue on each end and add a little black pearl. Just a fun little finishing. I think silver would have been cute here as well. I really couldn't find my silver pearls. That's the true story. So I do love how the black turned out. And that is it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this set of 3 oversized postage cards featuring the Waffle Flower June 2024 release products. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye! Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind-the-scenes content. Top-tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new video. Thanks for watching!